Watch this video to complete Copycat Meows, a theory work page from the Piano Adventures Primer Level Theory book. To complete this video, you will want your workbook open to page 42 and a pencil or something else to write with. Before we jump on to the page, I want to take a look at how to tell the difference between steps and skips visually on the staff. Let's start by looking at steps. Steps always move from a line to a space or a space to a line. So they're moving from one kind of note to the different kind of note. Steps also look super close together on the staff. Here is a step. You can see that this step is moving from a line to a space. This step is also traveling up. We can have steps that move up and down and they look slightly different, so we're going to take a look at both kinds. Now let's look at a different example of a step. This step that I'm going to draw is going to start on a space and end on a line. So space note to line note. That's a space too. And this step is traveling down, so it looks a little bit different. I'm going to go ahead and erase this one, and let's take a look at a couple of examples down on the bass clef. Let's draw a step that looks like this. So I'm starting on a space note, and I'm moving to a line note. Those are different things. Also, this step is moving up. Okay, let's erase that and try one more. This time, I'm going to start on a line in the bass clef, and I'm going to move to a space. This step will also look like a downward moving step. So line to space, those things are different, and so this is a step. So now we've seen a lot of examples of what steps can look like on both staves. Let's erase all of this and let's transition to the other kind of note we're going to be looking at on this workbook page. That's a skip. So how can we tell whether we're looking at a skip on a staff? Well, skips look different than steps in a very important way. They move from a line to a line or a space to a space. Like this one, that's moving from a line to a line. This is also a skip that's traveling up. That's one way that a skip can look. Let's erase it and look at another kind of skip. This next skip will move from a space to a space. So you'll notice we're going from one kind of note to the same kind of note. If we start with a space note, the next one is a space note. If we start with a line note, the next one is a line note. And that's how we can tell that it's a skip. Let's take a look at a couple of examples on the bass clef too. So this first one that I'm going to draw is a line note to a line note. So a line note to a line note is a skip. I know because I started with one kind of note and ended with the same kind of note. This is what a downward moving skip on the bass clef looks like. Now let's erase that and let's draw one more kind of skip on the bass clef. This one will move from a space to a space, from one kind of note to the same kind of note. This is a skip that is traveling up, and you can clearly see that these notes are inside of the spaces, both of them. Okay, we've talked about steps and we've talked about skips. Now it's time for us to test ourselves and see how good we are at telling the difference between the two. Let's play a little game. This game of skips and steps identification is called What Is It? Let's do the first couple together. The first thing we're going to do is to look at each note individually and determine whether it's a line note or a space note. This first note here is a line note, and the second one is a space note. And now we need to think, if this moves from line to space, it's moving from one thing to a different thing. Is that a step or a skip? Yep, it's a step. Let's erase this one and take a look at another one together. The first thing we do is look at each note individually to determine whether each note is either a space note or a line note. The first note here is a space note, and the second note here is a space note. That means that we are moving from a space to a space. One thing to the same thing is a skip. Okay, it's your turn to figure one out on your own. Take a look at these two notes. Does this look like a step or a skip to you? Did you notice that this one's moving from a space to a space? That's a skip. We'll do one more on your own. Take a look at these two notes. Does this look like a step or a skip to you? Do you see that one is a line and one is a space note? That is a step. Okay, let's move on to that workbook page now. Your page should look like this. Copycat Meows has several steps to it. In the first step, we will be determining whether each interval is a skip or a step. Then we will copy that interval into the staff right next to it, and finally we will identify the note names. The first one has been done for us as an example. Let's go over it with them. So I see a space to a line. That is a step. So I will go ahead and circle step. Now I'm going to copy the interval that they wrote on the left into the staff on the right. When you draw notes, first you draw the note head, then you draw the stem. And finally, I'll write the two letter names, C and D. Let's do the next one together. We're going to move right below this one. I see two notes here. One is a line note, and the other one is a line note. Is that a skip or a step? Did you say skip? If you did, you're correct. Go ahead and circle skip. When we skip, we move from one note to the same kind of note. Now we're going to copy these exact same notes into the staff to the right. First, I will draw the note head, color it in, and then I will draw the stem. The next step is to identify the note names. This first note is on the line that comes right out of the bass clef, which I know is also called the F clef, so that's F. And a skip down from that, well, that would be D. For the next one, I'm going to have you do it in your workbook, but you can watch what I'm doing if you need help. That's it. Now, we copied the book's example, we did one together, and you did one on your own. You know how to do these now. We're going to pause this video so that you can complete the remaining 3 and then come back to see the answers. Make sure that you have completed all 3 before you leave this screen. Okay, now I will reveal the answers. Here they are. Take a moment to check your work and correct any mistakes that you made. And that's it. This theory workbook page is done. I'm giving you a check, star, plus, and a smiley face. Great work today.